Yo, what is up, guys? Cool412 the Fox here. Now, anyways, after the last review on Halloween, which was A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors, I gotta admit, it was great to get a chance to review that on Halloween night. And I hope everyone had a great Halloween. And yet, I know people are probably saying is, Halloween's over, why are you still reviewing these horror movies? Well, the answer to that is, I made a promise that I will get a chance to finish up these reviews no matter what. And we're gonna keep going until all the films of the franchises are complete. But anyways, we are on to the third film of the franchises, and we are on to the Friday the 13th franchise, and the third film we are reviewing today is Friday the 13th Part 3, 3D. And man, I had to be wearing my 3D glasses because Friday the 13th Part 3, 3D, looks like something that I don't think Freddy Krueger has ever done in his movies. I mean, if he did a 3D movie, that would have been pure competition right there between him and Jason. But man, the rivalry between the two is phenomenal. No doubt about that. But anyways, this story takes place after what happened between Part 1 and Part 2 of the Friday the 13th franchise. And we all know Jason survived in Part 2. But what was the outcome for him? And how did he get his iconic hockey mask? Let's find out in Friday the 13th, Part 3, 3D. The movie begins by taking us straight from what happened in Part 2 of Friday the 13th. In the same way as I mentioned from my last review of Friday the 13th Part 2, the final girl pretended to be Jason's mother, but when Jason was going through the same trance like he thought it was his mother, that was until when he looked closely, he realized that's not his mother because he saw his mother's head. And after that scene, that is where it was still revealed what happened at the ending of Part 2, showing a glimpse of Jason's mother's head and into a 3D title card. And yet, the way the opening turned out, I was amazed. Knowing the film is supposed to be like a 3D film of things like coming right at your face, like you just don't see it coming. Yeah, good thing I might have brought some 3D glasses to see some things come out of the screen, and yet it was kind of cool. And I had to admit, the opening was really cool in 3D fashion, but yet, who knows what could happen. Anyways, moving on. That is where we cut to a grocery store where a married couple are going over things and what's going on. And then they were arguing over, like, oh my God, some silly things that went on, like the laundry, everything else. Then we get a glimpse of Jason, who survived and is still on the run. And that was until it was where, like, one of the couples were having some of their moments where the wife was watching the news about what happened to the final girl of Part 2 and was rushed to the hospital, while, of course, her husband was... I was stunned at first because he was eating so much food. Like he was a hungry guy. And man, I thought I was always hungry so much. But anyways, as it came down to it, there were some 3D moments, including some jump scares I did not see coming. Then there was a 3D moment when the husband went to put the rabbit away. When he looked in the kennel, he was done out of his mind at first, but then a snake jumped out right at you in the 3D moment. And he jumped out right at him during that 3D moment of the glimpse of it, and it scared the heck out of him. But to me, I was like, oh my god. That snake scared the heck out of me. Like, it was about to jump right at me. But, like I said, Friday the 13th Part 3 3D is something that nobody knew what to expect. But it was actually really cool, though. Anyways, he ran out of the whole ordeal, and his wife was wondering what's the matter. And that was where he ran into the restroom, but then after he went, I don't want to talk about it, but yuck, it's too gross. But anyways, that was where he heard noises again, trying to investigate. But when he looked around, it was too late. Jason got him from out of nowhere and took him out. But then the wife overheard everything and went straight to the back to investigate. By the time she was looking around, she couldn't find her husband anywhere until a rat popped out of nowhere, scared the heck out of her, and then Jason took her out from behind. And that was when a flash came in, where we were introduced to another colorful cast of characters that I think were pretty cool and kind of silly. And that's where we were also introduced to the final girl of the film, Chrissy. But yet, that was where one of the other characters I kind of liked the most was, I think, kind of a silly guy when it came to pranks, named Shelly. And no, it's not Shelley Webster from The Crow. But yet, speaking of which, if you guys want me to do a review on the Crow franchise, I'd be more than glad to. Because The Crow is one of my all-time favorite film franchises ever created. And Brandon Lee, I think, pulled off an amazing performance. And if you guys want me to do a review on the Crow franchise, please let me know. Because I'd be more than glad to make that happen. But anyways, as they were about to get their friend, Shelly pulled off a prank from behind, and he was a bit of a jokester, like I mentioned. But when they went to get their friend, the mother came out first, and that's what she said was she's not leaving. Then we hear argument and commotion going on in the house, and it really got crazy, which I was, for one, kind of stunned about it. But I didn't know what to expect next. When she came out from within the story, that was where it was revealed that she was Shelly's date. Even though he's a bit of a jokester and a comedian. But throughout the film, it was really good so far, but I don't want to talk about this next scene because, yeah, rules are rules. But anyways, moving on. As they were driving down to their campsite, more likely to the cabin they were staying at for the night, that was where, oh dear. Like I said, I don't want to talk about what happened throughout the other scenes because, yeah, due to how everything is these days, yeah, rules are rules. But anyways, that's where they were trying to drive to the cabin until the police was until they heard the police sirens, trying to drive away, but that was until they pulled over. But instead, they didn't talk to them. The police drove past them. It was just like false alarm. But then we get a glimpse of the grocery store that Jason was at, and the police were investigating on what happened. But deep down in my mind, I was like, well, dang. I didn't see that coming, but anyways. We get a glimpse of them before making it to the cabin, but they see a guy sleeping in the middle of the dirt road. And they stopped. And that was where they checked on the poor guy if he was okay, but that was where he scared them off what looked like to be an eye. I was like, oh my god, if that were me in that position, I'd run for it. But he was just like trying to tell them that the good Lord just trying to warn them to turn back. That they were in danger. But yet, I was like, oh my gosh, even in 3D fashion, it was getting close to me. I was like, what the heck? Get that away from me. That was gross. But scary in the process, but I mean, that's how 3D effects work sometimes when you have your 3D glasses. Anyways, we then cut to them making it to the cabin, or they had to drive over a rickety bridge with their van. And by the time they got there, that was where Chrissy went to get her bag. And when she went into the cabin, that's where we were introduced to Chrissy's boyfriend. And he looked like a cool guy, but yet they really cared about each other. And that was where, throughout the film thus far, I was amazed when these characters were trying to have a good time and yet try to relax. But that was where there was a barn. And realized, like, why do you need a barn out here before? And she explains to him that the barn was her father's idea and one day wanted to get a horse. And with all the hay they had to bring in. But throughout the film, it looks really cool and yet amazing enough. And that wasn't until Shelly's pranks came into play when they heard a scream in the cabin. But when they got in there, Shelly pulled off another prank. And they did not take it lightly, knowing he was joking. But deep down in my mind, when you do some pranks, don't scare everybody. Just have fun with it. Don't take things too far. But yet, as they're about to leave to the grocery store to get some food and everything else they need, Shelly wanted to go with them. And luckily they borrowed Chrissy's boyfriend's car to get there, and yet they went immediately to the store. And that was where Shelly went with them. But yet, throughout the whole ordeal, that was where Jason may have found his way to the cabin where the barn was, in his own personal hiding place. And I was like, stunned out of my mind at first, but Jason, I think, was in stealth mode, knowing he's a camper and knows how to fight. But it's surprisingly enough to me that Jason, I think, is one of the best characters of all time in my book, along with all the other characters I'm reviewing here. Anyways, moving on, then we cut to the grocery store where Shelly and his date went to get the materials they need. And when the grocery store attendant said that's $18 and they don't take food stamps, I was like, how in the world do you not take food stamps? You're supposed to anyways, it's a grocery store type deal. And she said it was cash only, but I was like, oh, come on, you gotta at least make an exception, because some people can't afford food these days. But that's how it is in the film. But anyways, when she asked for Shelly's wallet, he threw it at her, but when she went to pick it up, we get a glimpse of a biker. And yet, being the toughest one out of all of them, that's where her friends came into play and grabbed Shelly from behind. And I think she was trying to teach her some manners. And, oh my gosh, disrespect. And then that was where, after they paid for the groceries, one of the bikers came out that the biker girl was with. And that was where he tried to leave, but then accidentally hit the bikes when he backed up. And he was mad as heck. And he decided to teach them a lesson. When he tried to drive right past the guy, he just stopped the car, but then we still get 3D glimpses of him breaking the window and like he was hitting it with the chain. And then by the time he was driving out of there, and he was just like, no, this is personal. And then Shelly hit the bikes again, drove the heck out of there. But he did not take it lightly and was angry and wanted vengeance. But yet, eventually he got his wish. As we then cut clips back to the campsite, where the cabin was in the barn, where Jason was hiding throughout the film. And that was where it led to bad to worse, where they pulled in with the car and Chrissy's boyfriend did not take it lightly and was just realized what happened. And that was where Shelly pointed out that we had to deal with a couple of biker gangs after what's going on. And then that was where he was mad and wanted to leave, but Chrissy went with him and they went for a little ride. But throughout the film, it was really cool after what I've been seeing. They got a chance to hang out. That was when one of the other characters were about to go for a swim. But right as she got the towels, that was where the bikers from before came in to try to get a little revenge. And when one of them gave out the coast is clear, it was until the biker girl that was in the film earlier tried to explain to them that this is not a good idea, but they were like, no, this is payback. But when she got to the barn, she was trying to have a little fun, but by the time that they got all the gas fuel they needed, that was until they were about to set fire to the barn, until they found the biker girl swinging from the top of the barn trying to have fun, like on a swing set. And the guy was trying to tell her to get down from there and get out of there, that you're going to ruin everything. But that was until when she got back in the barn, it's like she disappeared and vanished. And the guy that was there earlier was just like, what are you doing in there? You're going to ruin everything. Get out of there. But when he looked around to find her, it was too late. She was taken out by a pitchfork. But I don't want to go into details, but we get a glimpse of that 3D fashion, but as she was taken out by Jason off screen, but I was like, well, didn't see that coming. And that was until he got so mad until Jason took him out from behind. He did not see it coming. And the other guy that was part of the biker gang was very mad, and when he got there, he found his friend not taken out by Jason, but when he saw Jason for what he did, the fight broke out, but Jason knocked him out. But throughout the film thus far, though, it was actually getting really cool. That is, until we see another 3D glimpse of a yo-yo being moved up and down of everyone having a good time. But I was like, how much more 3D glimpses are we getting here? Because this 3D film is off the chain. This is amazing. But throughout the film, I really loved it because you just don't know what to expect in a 3D movie every time that you watch it with 3D glasses. But then later on throughout the film, that's when we cut to another part of the film that I thought we never see, but it was later that night. Everyone having a good time. And that was where Shelly's date went outside to get some fresh air, and Shelly was just trying to be a joker and have a good time, but that did not go too well for the poor guy. From all the pranks he did. But throughout the film, I was immediately loving what I was seeing, but that was until we cut to Chrissy and her boyfriend somewhere deep within the woods, trying to have a good time. But Chrissy tells her backstory on what happened, of why she's so scared of coming to the cabin sometimes and getting a glimpse of the woods. That was where she wanted to punish her family, but that was until she pointed out that she was being attacked by a disfigured faced person that I think was Jason at the time, because it looked exactly like him a little bit, but we never got a glimpse of the face. But that was where she tried to fight to survive in the backstory of the flashback sequence. But that was until it was already too late, because she blacked out. When she woke up, she was back in the cabin. But that was until we cut back to the others, trying to relax and have a good time while Shelly's date was outside, relaxing. And that was where the other couple was trying to have a good time of their own when one of them made what looked like to be popcorn. But however, before we get to that, that was where he was trying to relax outside, but then something shake at the toilet stall and was just like, who's out there? When he went to investigate, there was nobody there. But that was until he went to tell his friend about it, which I think was either the wife or something, and they thought it was Shelly pulling off another prank. When they got to the barn, they thought they heard noises and somebody there. But when they looked around and tried to prank Shelly, he wasn't there. So they went back to the cabin, and we still get a glimpse of Jason being hidden in the cabin without being seen. And that was where, so far throughout the film, I think Jason was in stealth mode. And then we cut to where Chrissy and her boyfriend were relaxing until the car battery ran out. So they took a shortcut back to the cabin. While Shelly's date was relaxing by the pier until Shelly pranked her underwater and with a hockey mask. And I think that was actually kind of cool, because it was good to pull off a good prank once in a while with a good scare. But however, for Shelly, it did not go too well, and I felt bad for the poor guy, claiming to be a nobody. Well, to me, he looked like a somebody trying to have a good time with a good prank. But by the time his date was trying to convince him otherwise, and he ran off from the other part of the cabin, down and sad about himself just being a silly guy. But he had the hockey mask with him. But when he went to investigate what was going on in the barn, it was already too late. His date was looking at the wallet and a picture of a family, but that was until she accidentally dropped it in the water. But when she went to get it, that was when she looked back and thought it was Shelly apologizing to him that she dropped his wallet in the water. But when she looked again, realizing it wasn't him, she wanted to know who it was. But this was where Jason got the iconic hockey mask for the first time, until he took out Shelly's date. And still with a 3D glimpse, I immediately was stunned out of my mind. Oh my god. But anyways, we then cut back to in the cabin. Jason walked right in. And yeah, I don't want to talk about what happened throughout the film, so yeah, rules are rules, but anyways. Well, one of the characters was doing a handstand, trying to ask his date if she wanted a beer, and she said, yeah. But when he was doing the handstand in the halls, he got interrupted by his date asking if he was still out there. He was like, huh? But when he looked up, Jason took him out. From out of nowhere, like right as he looked up. It was already too late. But when she was like wondering what was going on, if he was still out there, by the time she was looking around, she thought he was gone. And as she was relaxing, she was reading a magazine, and we get a glimpse of Godzilla. But that was until when she looked up, she saw her date taken out. And I don't want to talk about it. It was brutal. But that was where she was screaming until Jason took her out from out of nowhere, pulling off the same thing his mother did throughout the first film. But anyways, then we cut back to the couple, realizing the situation. He was making popcorn, and yet the popcorn was exploding. Even in 3D fashion, the popcorn came from out of nowhere. And man, popcorn sounds good right now. I should have been having that while reviewing this movie, but hey, it's really cool. But by the time that they were trying to have their talk about what was going on, there was a blackout going on in the cabin, and she was screaming like, what was that for? There was nothing happening yet. But she wanted to practice, but however, that did not go too well when he went to investigate the power source to the cabin. By the time he was investigating, he was scared at first with a skunk that was kind of stuffed. I was like, man, you need to calm down. There's nothing out there. But by the time he kept looking around, that was where he turned on the power, but before he did that, Shelly walked back to the cabin, and she thought it was a good old prank again Shelly was doing. But nope, he was already taken out. But that was where she went to try to shake Shelly, but when he fell over, it was too late. He was gone, and taken out by Jason, off screen. But yet, I was kind of confused at first. Like, I thought Jason would be supportive of this kid because he's been through so much, and yet nobody liked him. But I guess not. Anyways, as she was screaming, the guy downstairs turned the power back on, but then when he turned around, Jason took him out after he hit the power box. And by the time she was looking around trying to find everybody, but she got taken out by Jason with a fire poker that was used for the fireplace. And yet, still in 3D glimpse, even throughout the film, I'm stunned out of my mind after what I'm seeing. Because Jason, I think, has really gotten aggressive throughout this film, just stunned. Like, I was stunned, like he was gotten tougher after putting on the hockey mask. It's like, now you see him, now you don't. But hey, that's how it is. Anyways, as Chrissy and her boyfriend got back to the cabin, they were trying to find everybody, but no one was around. When her boyfriend looked around, there was nobody. When she looked inside, that was where still nobody was around until she ran to find her boyfriend, where Jason took him out. The only thing I could say is his head got crushed like a melon. And still in 3D fashion. Good Lord. I didn't know Jason would be that strong, but yet that was where she was still looking around on what happened. She was scared out of her mind until, like, once again, shades of the first film, Chrissy's boyfriend got thrown right through the window, and Jason came in. And she was trying to fight back, but when she was running upstairs to try to hide from Jason, she found one of her other friends taken out by him. And then that was where it led to bad to worse. She found what looked like to be a knife, or actually, yeah, it was a machete, trying to fight back against Jason. But when he broke through the door with an axe, he got hit leg first, and then she was fighting back. And after taking out Jason, the chase was on. She tried to jump out through the window, but Jason grabbed her until she took off her jacket and fell right on the ground to survive. But throughout the film, it was really good so far for what I was seeing. And then that was where, throughout the film, she tried to drive away in the van, but it was out of gas, thanks to those bikers earlier. But then that led to bad to worse, where Jason tried to get her out of the van, but she rolled up the window and his hands were stuck until he hit his head through the glass window to try to get her. But it was already too late. She was running for it back to the barn to wait for the right time to strike against Jason. When she did, Jason came into the barn and locked the place up. And as he was looking around to find her, he was angry after the heinous attack he had to go through against her to fight back. Then, that was where she attacked him from out of nowhere from up top. And the fight broke out between the two. And as she climbed up the ladder, Jason was climbing up as well in pursuit. But then she knocked him out from behind and tried to take him out by throwing him out of the barn. And yeah, I don't want to talk about what happened there. So, no. Rules are rules, but anyways, when she went to try to leave through the barn by the front doors, she thought Jason was done and out like a light. But however, Jason revealed that he was not gone. He was alive. And she was just like, it can't be. But when Jason lifted up the hockey mask to reveal himself, that was where she remembered him and was just like, ew! And Jason had a smile on his face, realizing that he survived. And the chase was still on again, until the biker from earlier tried to fight back against him, but Jason, with the machete, took him out. But then, when she was fighting back against him, that was where she took him out with an axe. That left the famous mark on the hockey mask to this day. And Jason was out. But yet, after she left the barn, she went to what looked like to be a canoe. And I believe it was shades of the first film, and she tried to sleep it off outside the waters on the canoe. When she woke up, she was screaming at logs hitting the canoe. She thought something was going to jump out and get her, but when she looked up at the cabin, Jason, without the hockey mask, was trying to get her, but when she turned around, he was gone, like nothing happened. But then, that was where, when she tried to get out of there, it was until we get a glimpse of Pamela Voorhees jumping out of the water. grabbing her and bringing her to the water. Shades of what Jason did from the first film. And then we cut to the glimpse of the police investigating on what happened. But she was too scared out of her mind, in shock. And she was screaming, but they helped her to the car. She was laughing, like she survived. Then the movie ends where we cut to Jason still out like a light, and then the glimpse of the water, where Pamela Voorhees was still there, waiting for revenge. But then that's where I think, in 3D fashion, I gotta admit, Friday the 13th Part 3 3D was actually really cool, and I really loved it. And I have to admit, after what I've seen throughout this film, I believe Friday the 13th Part 3 gets a solid 10 out of 10. After seeing all the 3D fashions throughout the film, you won't see anything anywhere else when you see a classic film like this. But yet, from the conjoint numbers, knowing Friday the 13th Part 3 3D, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors has 10, while sadly Halloween 3 Season of the Witch has a 6.5. And in total, that equals up to 26.5. And with all the other films combined, we will get to at the end of the other reviews of the franchises of the films. Anyways, that about wraps it up for this edition of a Halloween Nightmare on Friday the 13th. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, to hit that subscribe button, turn on post notifications, so you guys do not miss another amazing more content like this. I want to thank you all so much for watching. And be sure to tell my friends I said, what's up?